evening and welcome to Tinkering with Edkelar. Well, as you can clearly see, this ain't a reel-to-reel recorder. I was hoping to have the VT110 project ready for part 3 this week, but fate decided against it. There is a broken part in there that needs more than just a little bit of attention to replace, and since I would like to end part 3 with a working recorder, I had to postpone that episode yet again. Sorry. So, what do I have here instead? Why, it's a Commodore Amiga 500, of course. This was amongst my first ever restorations that I captured on video, but it's been on the, well, maybe later shelf for, yikes, how many years? Almost 8 years? Time sure flies when you have fun. Anyhow, after procuring a C-64, I also set out to get one of the A500 models. I never had one myself, but my cousin had one and I have some fond memories of playing Populous and Lemmings on it. Not to mention the music of Blood Money. Woohoo! Still sends chills down my spine when I think about it. And so, let's see how it went. The eBay listing was reasonable and did include a dust cover. All the keys are there and the case is in pretty nice shape too. As you can see, German keyboard layout. Aside from the PC keyboards, this was the first computer I saw where they didn't try to force the US layout on everybody. Ha, feels like early 1990s. Opening it up. Of course, the warranty seal is already broken. No surprise there. I don't think that there are many virgin retro computers left in the wild. Ah yes, the infamous trapdoor expansion area. I almost forgot about that. Typically, a 512 kilobyte memory card with a real-time clock would find its way into here, giving us a whole megabyte of RAM and a leaking battery. But nothing in here for now. And here we are. Notice that the keyboard has its own chip, thus making it much more reliable than the C-64 or C-128 solution. Here, the keyboard matrix is processed locally and only the pressed and released key codes are sent via a serial line. Older Commodore models, namely the SX64 and C128D, have the whole bundle of wires for the entire matrix over the external connection. Since the matrix is scanned dozens, if not hundreds of times per second, you end up with very high frequency signals on very long wires and thus quite a bit of crosstalk, and so the length of the keyboard cables was quite limited. Removing the keyboard. There is a bit of rust visible on the backing plate. And off with the shield cover. The floppy drive connection is next. The lower part of the RF shield forms the backplate for the sockets too. Oh, the serial port socket has a few bent pins. Fixing them now so I don't forget later. The floppy drive cover also has a bit of rust on it. Better get it ready for some cleaning. And now the keyboard. After snapping a reference pick, getting all the keys into the box for some scrubbing. The contact foil looks okay. And the plungers. And yes, it does need some deep cleaning. The keyboard backing plate is a bit droopy. This is what happens when you hit the keyboard in anger, or more likely, store something on top of the keys. But since this unit came with an acrylic dust cover, I suspect more of the anger issues in this case. After some tweaking, it is flat again. Brushing off all the metal parts with a slightly oily rag should prevent rust for some long time. and a bit of rust converter for the splotches. Wire brushing would have been better, but I had to try the chemical approach at least once. Getting new capacitors. Also, reseating all the socketed chips. Cleaning the drive parts next. And assembling it again. Recapping, starting with the floppy drive. And putting the second head on again. For now, aligning the upper and lower head visually. And after the loading mechanism is in place again, trying out the disk. That head is a bit floppy, even for a floppy disk. Oh, that's where that spring goes. Recapping the keyboard PCB. And naturally, also the main PCB. Desoldering the caps was a bit on the hard side. This is a multi-layer board after all, with some hefty ground planes to heat up. Cleaning the contacts of the keyboard membrane. And adding everything back into the case. What I didn't film, because I had no screen capture at the time, is the drive alignment. To boot the system, I used the Gotek Floppy emulator and put the real one in as ID1 or secondary floppy. Then, using Xcopy to repeated read a floppy and nudge the upper head around until both sides read fine. Should be good enough. The Amiga came with a mouse out of the box. The user interface also kinda dictated a mouse, but I had a hard time hunting down any Amiga compatible rodent, so at first this third-party model was all I could find. Eventually, a true proper Amiga mouse was also found, and the cleanup process video was promptly lost over time. Sorry. And that should do the trick. Let's give it a try. Yet another issue. According to the manual, you can use Ctrl Amiga Amiga to force a reset. Contrary to the PC's Ctrl Alt Delete, this is a true hardware reset. The keyboard logic does hook up to the reset pin on the main PCB, but it wouldn't work. Frustrating. I found out that one of the Amiga keys isn't working. Yes, that area in the keyboard foil is a clear hint. How can that even happen? Scratching off a bit of the insulation layer. And adding a bit of conductive paint. And ta-da! It works! Now all the keys are working again. The stock Amiga 500 came with 512 kilobytes of RAM. Quite enough for most games of the era, but over time, games, graphics and sound requirements increased. So most of the later games require a 1 megabyte machine. I found one of the expansion units too. 512 kilobytes of RAM with a battery-powered real-time clock. Note that the original ones were quite a bit larger than this, but the technical configuration is the same as the one my cousin had. And the battery of course leaked, but it doesn't seem to be the corrosive type of leak. Only the battery holder needs a bit of a clean. Now, several years later, and with a proper CRT of that time. Now let's have a quick look at some games. SimCity, a classic. But just in case it's new to you, you play the city mayor and build stuff to grow your city and attract new residents, which are paying taxes that you can then use to build more stuff. This game spawned countless of sequels and imitations, and the genre is still alive and kicking. Here we have Populous, a god simulator. It's a bit like SimCity, but at a more earthy level. You literally move the ground for your followers to build cities and battle the heathens who worship other gods. Lemmings, the first one that started it all. Many similar style games have followed this one. You have to make sure that a certain number of critters, lemmings, find their way out to the exit and can leave the stage before the time runs out. Simple enough, but to achieve this, there are a limited number of activities that you can assign to them. Dig, parachute, climb. This is what I would call the grandfather of all real-time puzzle games. And that's it. A nifty Amiga 500, complete with the obligatory memory expansion. I'll look into a hard drive for it eventually, since booting from floppy is a bit cumbersome if you want to do more than just play a game. And I really want to try my paws on a bit of coding, just for the heck of it. Anyhow, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this little project. See you next time! Cleaning the contacts on the p-board. The p-board! Yes, the p-board! Of course the p-board! Darn it!